Don't come to my wedding. You're no longer my family. My daughter wrote to me in a message, rejecting me for the sake of her new parents' wealth. I replied, understood. My heart was breaking from the betrayal. So, I called one person. 24 hours later, I had 83 missed calls from her and her family. They were panicking, begging me to stop, but it was too late. Dad, I need $35,000 for the wedding. Emily's voice cut through the evening silence. This is the most important day of my life. I looked up from my paper. $35,000, nearly a quarter of my entire retirement savings. Emily, I can give you $8,000. That's all I can afford on my pension. $8,000? That's pathetic. Her face twisted. The Thompsons say a real father will find a way. You're just content with mediocrity. Content with this tiny house, this tiny life, this tiny pension. I knelt to gather the scattered bank statements. My late wife's photo smiled up at me. The wedding dress alone costs more than you're offering, Emily continued, standing over me. The Thompsons are right about that much. You're just a failure. And what do you think your mother would say about this conversation? Mom would want me to be happy. She'd want me to have the wedding I deserve. She grabbed her purse. I'll give you a week to figure it out. Find the money, Dad, because I'm not backing down. The door slammed shut. Morning light filtered through the window, illuminating the Facebook notification. Emily Martin Thompson shared a post. I tapped the screen. Finally found real parents. Thank you, Richard and Margaret, for making dreams come true. Blessed new family, wedding planning. Below the text were photos. Emily beaming in a bridal salon with Margaret Thompson adjusting her veil. Richard Thompson, platinum credit card in hand. The three of them posed like a perfect family portrait. Real parents. I scrolled through the comments. The Thompsons are angels. Your new family is absolutely perfect. Not one mention of me. I screenshotted everything. Document everything. The banker in me was already working, even as the father in me bled. My phone buzzed. A text message from Emily. Dad, did you see my post? The Thompsons wanted everyone to know how grateful I am for real support. Still waiting for your answer about the money. 2 hours later, another text arrived. I stared at the screen, then opened it. Don't come to my wedding. You're not my family anymore. Personal execution. Final. Absolute. My hands trembled as I typed and deleted responses. Finally, I typed 2 words. I understand. Sent. I sat surrounded by 28 years of family memories. The hurt was still there, raw and deep. But alongside it grew something else. A cold, methodical anger that felt familiar from my banking days. All right, Emily, I said aloud to the empty house. Let's see how real your new parents actually are. I moved to my home office. My address book lay open on the desk, pages yellowed with age. Stephen Clark, Private Investigations. I'd worked with him at the bank. He was thorough, methodical, the kind of man who found answers others couldn't. I dialed his number. Stephen, it's Bob Martin. Bob. It's been years. What can I do for you, Bob? This is unexpected. I need some information about Richard and Margaret Thompson here in Spokane. Complete background check. Stephen's tone shifted to business mode. I see. What kind of scope are we talking about? Everything. Financial background, business practices, property holdings, legal issues. They own Thompson's fine dining downtown. I want to know exactly who these people are. I thought about the expensive bridal salon and the platinum credit card. I was particularly interested in their business practices, cash flow patterns, vendor relationships, tax compliance. That's comprehensive work, Bob. I'll need about a week for thorough results. $2,000 advance, the rest on completion. $2,000, a quarter of what Emily had demanded for her wedding. It felt appropriate. That works. I'll send you my contract and payment information by email tonight. Bob, can I ask what brought this on? You sound different. I stared at Emily's graduation photo on my desk. Sometimes you discover people aren't who you thought they were, Stephen. And sometimes you need to know exactly who you're dealing with. 3 days passed in silence from me. My phone, however, was not silent. I had kept a careful record in my old banking ledger. 83 missed calls. Emily, 47 calls, frantic and pleading. Richard Thompson, 23 calls, growing shorter and more demanding. Margaret Thompson, 13 calls, her voice increasingly strained. They were panicking, begging me to stop, but it was too late. I had simply called one person, Stephen Clark, and the financial pressure on the Thompsons had already begun. My phone buzzed with a new message from Emily. I finally answered. The silence stretched between us like the 18 days since she'd last called me family. Charlotte, forgiveness is one thing, but trust is entirely different. You made your choice when you threw me out of my own home. Now live with it. I can't survive without my money, I finished gently. You survived 34 years learning to depend on me for everything. Now learn to depend on yourself. Dad, please. I spent 30 years giving you everything I had. My time, my money, my heart, my home, and the first moment it became convenient, you discarded all of it. I paused, watching the afternoon light. That taught me something valuable about what I was protecting. The line went quiet, except for her breathing. Goodbye, Charlotte. I hung up. That evening, I poured a glass of wine. The house felt different now, not just because the Miller family's presence had been erased, but because it contained something new, self-respect restored through legitimate channels. I said to the empty room, I did this right. Justice prevailed. The systematic opponent had become something better, a man who'd learned the difference between winning and being right. Outside, Portland hummed with ordinary life. Inside, I began planning what to build next. The silence was the most effective weapon. After 3 days of receiving 83 missed calls, Bob knew the Thompsons and Emily were in a state of panic and desperation. The businessman facade of Richard Thompson was rapidly cracking, and Emily's latest message included an actual apology and a broken voice. The preliminary report from Stephen Clark revealed that the immediate panic and financial distress experienced by the Thompsons stemmed from Bob's discreet, targeted, and methodical investigation uncovering a severe, ongoing pattern of financial fraud and tax evasion. Stephen Clark's initial findings pointed to a multi-year, systematic criminal operation that was directly funding the Thompsons' extravagant lifestyle and, consequently, Emily's expensive wedding demands. The scale. The Thompsons were evading at least $400,000 in taxes over the past 3 years. This staggering sum made Emily's $35,000 wedding budget a rounding error in comparison to their illicit gains. The discrepancy. Their declared annual income of $80,000 from the restaurant was completely inconsistent with their $2.3 million mansion, luxury car payments, and country club memberships. Phantom catering. The core of the fraud was a sophisticated money laundering operation run through Thompson's fine dining. Stephen documented large, consistent monthly deposits from non-existent catering companies, e.g., Heritage Wedding Catering and Platinum Events Catering. Structured deposits. The deposits were structured to avoid reporting requirements, a classic tactic to hide illicit cash flow. Real source of money. This pattern of fake invoicing and inflated supply invoices strongly suggested they were not just stealing from the government, but were likely cleaning money for other people, unnamed sources, confirming Bob's instinct that their generosity came from theft and fraud. The Thompsons' panic was immediate because Richard's exposure. Richard, the businessman, was most exposed. A full-scale IRS or federal investigation, which Bob now had the solid evidence to trigger, would lead to the immediate seizure of assets, including the mansion and the restaurant, criminal charges, and complete financial ruin. The wedding funds, the money used for the wedding deposits, the BMW, and the lifestyle Emily was so proud of was stolen money. If the scheme collapsed, they would be unable to cover the remaining costs, and the entire wedding, Emily's ultimate desire, would be jeopardized. Reputation risk. Richard's reputation, built on an illusion of wealth and success, would be instantly destroyed among his business associates and country club friends. In short, Bob's silent investigation revealed that Emily had rejected her honest, if modest, father for criminals whose entire foundation of wealth was a house of cards built on fraud. Emily's phone calls, now including the words, "I'm really, really sorry," were the direct result of the pressure Richard and Margaret were facing. They realized that childish behavior they scoffed at was actually a deliberate, devastating strategic retreat by a man with a professional acumen to destroy them. When Emily arrived with white roses, she sought not just forgiveness, but confirmation that the threat had passed. Her apology was still laced with her core belief. They're not trying to replace you. They're able to do things you can't. The Thompsons' invitation to dinner, a proper conversation man-to-man, was a desperate attempt at de-escalation. They needed to understand what Bob knew and why he was targeting them before their entire criminal empire was handed over to federal authorities. Bob, now fully armed with the truth, agreed to attend. The little place, Thompson's fine dining, was a masterpiece of illusion. Richard and Margaret presided over their criminal enterprise with casual authority. As I sipped the expensive Bordeaux, I documented evidence. Cash transactions with no record at neighboring tables. Phantom company invoices left carelessly behind. Heritage Wedding Catering, one of Stephen's fake firms. Condescension. Richard and Margaret lectured me about real support and giving Emily a future with things a pension simply can't provide, all while operating a money laundering hub. I let Richard boast, detailing how they maximize income streams while minimizing overhead. Read, minimizing taxes. I photographed every suspicious transaction, 17 in total. Emily squeezed my hand, radiant with happiness, utterly oblivious that her dream wedding was being funded by tax evasion and fraud. To family, to new beginnings, Richard toasted. I met his eyes, my own glass raised. To getting exactly what we deserve. The week that followed was spent in meticulous preparation at my dining room command center. I don't want them in prison, Stephen. I want Emily to see the truth. Stephen's final report confirmed, this is enough to put them away for 5 years minimum. I digitized every document, ensuring redundancy. Then I drafted my complaint to the IRS, 12 pages of detailed allegations, supported by photographs and financial records, proving over $400,000 in unreported income. I printed 3 copies, sealing them in separate envelopes for a coordinated attack on the Thompsons' empire. IRS, Federal Tax Evasion, State Revenue Department, FBI Financial Crimes Unit. The federal investigation would take months to develop, but Emily's wedding was in 5 days. Friday evening, I assembled my special wedding gift, a leather portfolio containing copies of every incriminating document, arranged chronologically. On the cover page I wrote, "So you can see who your real parents actually are. Love, Dad." Saturday, I mailed the federal complaints from 3 separate post offices. The Thompsons' empire would be under federal scrutiny within weeks. Sunday morning, Emily called. Margaret's been planning something special. She wants to give a speech about family and how grateful they are to have you as part of theirs. That sounds lovely, honey. Monday, I composed one final insurance email, scheduling it to automatically send a complete evidence summary to a local investigative reporter if I didn't cancel it within 72 hours. Subject: Local restaurant owner's $1 million tax fraud scheme. The ceremony hall gleamed with $12,000 worth of white roses. Emily was radiant. I was seated in the third row, family section, behind Thompson relatives. Richard Thompson walked Emily down the aisle, claiming the honor as the man who'd made the day possible. Just before the ceremony, I handed Emily my gift. A special wedding gift. Make sure you open it tonight when you have time to read it properly. She hugged me, tucking the sealed envelope into her bridal bag next to her lipstick. The ceremony concluded. I smiled and nodded, playing my part perfectly. The humble father, grateful for Thompson kindness. 4 hours later, in the Davenport Grand Ballroom, the reception was in full swing. I watched from my table as Emily finally reached for her bridal bag. "What's this, Dad?" she called across the ballroom, holding up my gift. "Open it, sweetheart. It's something special." She broke the seal, her smile fading as she read the cover letter. "Dear daughter, meet your real parents." She spread the documents across the white tablecloth. Bank statements, tax returns, money laundering evidence. The color drained from her face. "Emily, what is it?" Jason leaned over, concerned. "Is this true? Are you really stealing money?" she asked, her voice trembling as she looked at Richard and Margaret. The ballroom began to quiet. Richard Thompson stood quickly, face flushing red. "That's all lies. Your father's just jealous because we could give you what he couldn't." Jealous. I rose from my seat, walking toward the head table. Every eye in the ballroom followed me. "No, Richard. No, Richard," I announced to the room, the sound cutting through the stunned silence. $400,000 in tax evasion. Money laundering through fake catering services. Your wedding was paid for with stolen money, Emily. Emily stared at the documents, then at the Thompsons, then back at the evidence. The flowers, the venue, everything. All of it, I confirmed. Funded by criminal activity. Richard's face turned purple. "You bitter old man. You're trying to ruin your own daughter's wedding. I'm trying to save her from criminals." The ballroom erupted in whispers. Guests pulled out phones, photographing the evidence. The scandal was spreading in real time. "The IRS doesn't think so," I interrupted Margaret's desperate plea. "I filed formal complaints 3 days ago. The federal investigation starts Monday." Emily dropped the documents, covering her face. "All this time, all your generosity, it was stolen money. You bought me with money you stole from other people." Her voice was hollow, devastated. Jason sat frozen, staring at his new in-laws. "The restaurant is a front for washing illegal cash," I confirmed. Margaret tried one last time. "Robert, surely we can discuss this privately." "No, Margaret. This conversation happens here in front of everyone who witnessed your triumph." Emily finally looked up, mascara streaking down her cheeks. "Dad, I'm so sorry. I said such terrible things to you. You were manipulated by criminals, sweetheart. You couldn't have known." The wedding guests, their friends, business associates, social connections, had become witnesses to their complete downfall. Emily gathered the scattered documents. "What happens now?" "Now," I said, watching the Thompsons' faces crumble. Justice happens. 5 days later, Emily stood on my doorstep, tear-streaked and laden with bags of expensive gifts. "Dad, I'm so sorry. I was a terrible daughter. You're my daughter, Emily, and I'll always love you. But now you know the difference between people who really love you and people who just want to use you." She nodded. "I brought everything back. All the jewelry, the clothes, the purse. I can't keep any of it now that I know where it came from. Because real love doesn't have a price tag, and that's something the Thompsons will never understand." "The IRS came to their restaurant yesterday," Emily said quietly. "Closed it down, took boxes of records." "Good. They'll face justice through proper channels now. That's how it should be. You could have just told me they were criminals. Why did you wait? Why did you let me go through with the wedding? Would you have believed me without proof? Or would you have thought your bitter father was just trying to ruin your happiness?" She was quiet for a long moment. "I would have chosen them. Even if you'd told me the truth, I would have chosen them because of their money. And now I understand why you always say the most important things can't be bought." We spent the afternoon going through old photo albums, pictures of a life that was modest, but real. "I want to have a proper blessing," Emily said. "Just us. Nothing fancy, nothing expensive, just honest. I'd be honored to walk you down the aisle at the real ceremony." Emily hugged me tightly before she left. "I'm sorry it took criminals and a federal investigation for me to realize what I already had." My phone rang. "Stephen Clark. Thompson's fine dining is finished. Richard and Margaret are looking at serious prison time. The local paper wants to interview you. Hero father exposes criminal in-laws to save daughter." Interested. I looked at Margaret's photo on the mantel. "No, Stephen. Some victories don't need publicity." I hung up and returned to my photo albums. In a few weeks, Emily would have her honest wedding blessing. Simple, modest, real. Everything the Thompsons' extravagance wasn't. My phone buzzed with a text from Emily. "Thank you for loving me enough to tell me the truth, even when it hurts. Justice had been served. My daughter was safe. And sometimes that's exactly enough." If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the right.